Computer. All right. Good morning, everybody. This is the Cluster API provider Nested office hours that happens at Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This meeting is being recorded, so don't say anything you wouldn't want to be posted onto YouTube later or anything like that. And yeah, I'm going to share my screen and get this started. We only have one thing on the agenda, and I want to make sure everybody else, if you have anything, please add those to the agenda. The single item on there might take the whole time, though, otherwise. And actually, before we get started, there's a couple of new folks on here, so I wanted to give everybody a chance to introduce yourself if you'd like to. If not, we can move forward. Justin, I don't know if everybody knows you.
Hi, I'm Justin Sedabarbara. I work at Google. I thought this project looked really cool. I've been more involved in cluster provisioning for a long time and thought this project looked cool. So I thought I would come along and learn more about what it is about, and I'm catching up. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Anybody else that's new? All right. Sounds good. I don't have any PSAs for the day. Does anybody have anything that they want to bring up before we move on to, I think, probably the biggest item, which is now that we have the proposal done, thanks, Chow, for putting all that in. It looks fantastic. We should start doing work breakdown so we can actually start moving forward on the rest of this, unless work has been done that we just haven't, that hasn't been pushed up yet. Anybody have anything that they want to announce to everybody?
Maybe not a formal announcement. So I have some thoughts recently because it's kind of a future work kind of thing, but I'd like to bring up because I don't know if you guys have this requirement, but I do get, ask even internally or even from the community, people ask, what if you have not one super cluster, you have more than one super cluster? How does that work? My current answer is no, we don't support it, unfortunately. But I do think that's a legitimate request because there are cases that you just cannot combine everything in one cluster. So I was thinking the way to let our the whole architecture support multiple supermaster. So I'm not going to propose details today. I just want to give you guys a heads up. I'm thinking of this problem and I have a kind of a solution in mind. In next couple, I will find a time, a proper time, maybe I will share some of my thoughts about this topic. There are some changes, but my design will, my hope is, mostly leverage our current infrastructure. Don't think it as a, traditional federated thing. It's kind of different because I want my solution to fit our architecture. So that's the number one solution. Yeah, I just want to give you guys a heads up. I'm thinking of this problem and I probably will give you some thoughts in next couple of minutes meeting.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very interested. I mean, if you want to start talking about it, I would be absolutely interested in hearing. I know I've kind of noodled on some thoughts about that because that is a path that I want to go long term. I know we're not ready for that internally yet.
Everything at this moment Intel VC cluster, so we kind of follow a kind of a philosophy which is simple, easy to use. So I still want to keep this trend for everything that we do here. So that's the reason the design may need to have a lot of polished things. I want to give more time to think through the whole thing before I present it. But I have a rough idea and I wish it will work. But I will let you guys know and discuss to see if it's feasible. And if it is okay, I'd like to push your kind of experimental directory in our repo to give some very POC style implementation for that.
Cool. Yeah, I know I would definitely be interested in seeing seeing thoughts around that. I know loosely what I've noodled about is like if like when we actually bring over the sync controller from VC and things like that, if there's work that we can do to make it so that you could sync with even like topology aware type scheduling and kind of hook into that and make it so that syncers were topology aware, topology meaning cluster in that notion. and being able to fan out that way. I'm assuming that's probably the direction that you're.
Yeah. So yeah, let me just spend a little bit more minutes about this. So if
Okay.
problems, one problem is the scheduling problem, because you need to decide, once you have a tenant object, you need to decide which cluster it goes. This is the scheduling problem. It's kind of, this problem is like, common federated cluster scheduling problem, but I want to do it in a different way. The second problem that you said is how do we synchronize the objects, right? So we rely on syncer. Then that's the sync topology. Basically, you have a bunch of tenant cluster, you have a bunch of super cluster, and you probably have one or multiple syncer is sitting in between. You just need to build up the mesh to connect them together. That's the whole thing. So this using is actually a little bit separated, because this is kind of separate, decoupled problem. But we can discuss one by one. So even for the mesh kind of sync mesh kind of thing, you can have a centralized mesh or have multiple syncers but as I said, this can be, we can decouple this problem into two. We can discuss each one.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to hearing about that. I think that is a good goal for us to eventually get to, because that will really take us to a completely new level of trying to treat these super control planes under the hood as they are in CAPI, at least management clusters, into a different level.
I agree, because this probably, if you think far and think loud, this is probably the biggest, the benefit that people can gain from this project, other than have the syncer stuff. Because if you have a way to combine all your cluster into one, and provides a kind of multi-tenancy, isolated multi-tenancy user experience, that'd be fantastic. My thought.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Sweet. And just make sure Chow is on, right? Yeah, cool. So I wanted to actually go through. So I think moving on to the next item, at least, I wanted to go and do like an actual work breakdown of everything that we need to do now that we have that proposal merged, so we can move forward. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes, very much so. I'm excited to do that.
Cool. All right. So how would you like to organize this? I'm happy to sit on the other side and mute and write up issues as we talk through them. Or we can. Yeah.
I think what Chao has, if I didn't miss anything, Chao has a proposal for all the component CRDs, right? How
This
about
one, yeah.
the NCP CRD? Is that
Yeah, we don't have that one yet. I don't think we have that one yet. That one's, I think you and I need to work on this one a little bit. And I'll create a HackMD from that Google Doc, so it's a little bit easier for us to work together on that separately.
Yeah, I think that is the immediate next step that we could do, because it's kind of, because this is kind of blocking issue. Even if we have all the components stuff done, we don't have our orchestrator, it still doesn't work. So
sure.
So I think the next immediate item is we need to figure out the top level NCP CRD design, and by the way, coding wise, I think Chao can start this to send, to submit the scaffolding code for all the controller stuff.
Cool. I was wondering if there's actually a way that we could break that up into 3 different components and have folks actually own individual components of it, being etcd controller manager and API server. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's also doable. If you want to do that, I'm happy to do it. It's okay to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. I'm thinking we have a lot of people that we could probably get more work done at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Kind of thing.
Definitely.
Cool.
If you want to go with that way, I'm fully okay with that.
Okay. Can I make 3 issues then? 1 for each of the components, and we can start there and get those assigned off?
Cool. That's a good idea.
Cool. I'm on mute, so you don't have to hear my. Before I break this down, and before I actually mute myself, I want to break it down into each individual of the components. Do we want to break them down into types and controllers? How would be best for everybody to work on these?
I think scaffolding code can just send by one people, right? You don't have to. So we just all the frame code. So how about let Chao just just assign one controller, one component to Chao, and he will set up all the scaffolding code, and the rest people will just add the rest two components. At least the code-wise, most of the common code has been in. That should be pretty straightforward.
Okay. All three. So for all three components, and that'll be expanding upon, just so we know, go back to here. So that'll be expanding on the base defaults that Vince put in for getting up and running with CAPI projects like the main.go. So making sure it just mutates those things. So we'll just do the base scaffolding for the three components. That proposal number. Cool. Chao, if you want to assign that to yourself, you can do that. I'm thinking that we should also then have create controller for nested etcd.
Yes. How about you guys? One people from your side take this?
Sounds good.
Yep.
Cool. I'll let you all self-organize and kind of go assign that to yourself. Unless someone wants to call it out, and I can assign you right now to it. By the way, I believe that's right. And then, Chao, I'm going to assign this to yourself, actually, or to you. Great. And then we need one for creating controller for nested API server.
You can assign this one to me.
Cool. Now, actually, Justin, since we have you on the line, I want to open this up a little bit, since I didn't get a chance to meet with you all last week for the cluster add-ons group. Since you've done a lot of work in that space, just to open up the conversation before I completely file all the rest of these issues, what we're planning on doing here, if you haven't had a chance to actually read the design doc, is we're planning on using the cluster add-ons and like the KubeBuilder declarative patterns project, in essence, to go and deploy 3 different components within the control planes. I think you've reviewed some of the virtual cluster docs a little bit, but the idea there is we'll have an individual CR for nested API server, nested controller manager, and nested etcd. Most of that is so that we can swap out those implementations as we need. For example, we're not looking at using what we build in tree as a nested etcd provider. For example, we want to use something that's more off the shelf, that's a little bit more battle tested, because there's a lot of prior art in that space, and we don't need to reinvent that wheel. So the idea there is we have each individual component, we can independently update those and have all of the manifests just compiled into those controllers, like you do with all the cluster add-ons. Do you see any concerns with any of that? Yeah.
No, it should work great. We've also relaxed the requirements a little bit. You don't have to necessarily compile those things in anymore. The source can be HTTPS or our Google Summer of Code participant added initial support for Git, so that can be super handy for development.
Awesome.
Evan Cordell from Red Hat has a cap around sourcing it from an image registry, so there's more flexibility about where those images come from. And I think I have a PR up to support. I don't think you're going to need this for the things you've described, but if you wanted to put something into I can't remember what you call them, the tenant clusters. If you want to put something into the tenant clusters from the supercluster, I think I have a PR up that enables remote application. It's still in an early stage, so you could have what would be an example? Let's suppose you want to manage your kube proxy in the tenant cluster from the supercluster. You could maybe do that using CRD in the supercluster, which would then be applied into the tenant cluster. You don't have to, but there's some initial work going on there as well, which might also be relevant. But yeah, the basic use case of I have a CRD, I want to expand it to some other YAML, which I then apply. That's sort of the bread and butter of this pattern, and should work fine.
The additional thing that you said there about being able to deploy things into the cluster, how does that work with resources like what Cappy's doing with the cluster resource set?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is cluster resource set their new like add-on? They're
Yeah. It's
yes.
Exactly that. It's the once your management cluster deploys a cluster, go deploy additional resources. Because we were thinking about using, say, for instance, the core DNS operator that you already have, using that to using the cluster resource set to be able to deploy things like core DNS, so you had tenant DNS in every tenant control plane.
Yeah, we've spoken with, I can't remember the name of the person working on it, but them around like reusing some of the code. And I think they want to keep the one in cluster API super simple, whereas we want to do sort of the ongoing reconciliation. So it wasn't necessarily 100% overlap.
Okay.
But I think in my ideal world, those two things would converge. Like there would be more reuse of the libraries. I think our libraries were in a very much earlier, they're still in an early state, but they were in an even earlier state at that time.
Cool. And that's all based on the actual add-on installer, or is that part of the add-on installer functions, or?
No, this is all in the Kubota declarative pattern library,
Gotcha.
Which essentially we've added the ability to specify or override the cluster that you are applying to. And we now use apply as code rather than apply from execing. So that's fixed as well.
Oh, rad. I didn't know that was all updated yet. Very cool. Okay. Sweet. Thank you.
Lots of fun stuff. Cool. Thanks.
All right. Last one. Create nested controller. Cool. Again, you all can assign these to yourself soon. Cool. All right, so Chow, you and I need to work on the NCP controller or NCP resource type.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What else can we break down that we need to start working on as it currently stands?
As far as I can see, I would expect we will spend some time to integration because you have three but that may be next meeting's agenda because if we have things built up, based on my past experience, it takes some time to make all three things work together. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to do some stubbing between the two, and there'll be expectations that it conforms to the design. Hopefully, that actually works out as expected. Okay.
Yeah. I don't have something came in mind right now, but some items may will be done because we need to write documents about how to use it, and because the deployment model is kind of different from what it looks like before. We were using class version to handle everything. Now we break it down. If you look at the section of people already asking, why not just class version? Yeah, and that guy sent me in a Bright. That guy sent me a message that he's used to class version.
Yeah, I actually want to find out what time zone Bright's on, so we can get them involved as well.
So that is a difficulty here. So
cool.
I have some private Slack chat with him. So I try to convince him that this model fits more people's requirements.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. If we can get them involved or something at some point, that would be awesome. Cause yeah, they have great thoughts, and another person from another company with different designs and goals that they're trying to get out of the use cases. So
we encourage him to speak up. So if you don't like this model, just speak up. Say why you don't like this model. That's okay. We are pretty open.
yeah. Yeah. We're not stuck on anything specific. So, okay, cool. All right. So it sounds like we have at least 3 components that we need to build. Hopefully we can get something by next week. If not, we can keep moving forward when we can actually get these out.
So Chris, with you, we'll first go through the Google Doc for the NCP design. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's, you and I should get together. We can actually, because we don't have anything in there really right now.
Yeah, maybe we can have some, very rough design and we can go from there.
I think that was here. Yeah, I want to move this over to HackMD so that it's a little bit easier to write this thing together. And then I'll get that shared.
Yeah, eventually we will come up with PR like MD file, MD proposal file, like what Charles has been done for the rest.
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Definitely. Okay. Cool. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? Otherwise, we can break early and give back 30 minutes to everybody.
Oh yeah, another direction. Yeah, but not immediate action. But some guys, for internal guys, have some suggestion in terms of the coding. They said maybe the current thinker code can be organized in a better way because all the resource sync logic, there are some duplicate code. So maybe we can organize them like in a runtime library kind of thing to make the code looks better. That's definitely a good suggestion. But yeah, as we know, so but I put it as optional things, but it's definitely not necessary as of now because a few thoughts I have is the current code looks a little bit chubby. That's kind of but it's not a very concise structure. But in the other ways, we have a strong control about the resource that we want to think. I don't want to go to another extreme that people can easily think everything.
Right.
That's my thought. So I'm afraid if you do a kind of runtime framework kind of thing, people can easily add more and more things into it. That has a downside because this is not directly copied to API server. There's an abstraction. There's a kind of abstraction in that. Is we make supercluster as a resource provider only, just resource provider, nothing more. I don't want to you have a control logic in the. You add some control logic. For example, if you think workload CRD, they'll be in trouble because if you have 2 workloads work together, one is in tenant, one is in super, it's a disaster. So that's another thing I'm thinking of. So maybe you guys have better ways to achieve both. We have a clear, concise code structure, but by the meantime, we have an easy control of what things should be synced and what other things should not be synced.
Yeah.
So
Fei,
goals. Go ahead, Wei. Sorry.
Yeah. So Fei, I also have a question. So here in our implementation, we have 2 thinker implemented. One is of course the standard resource thinker. Another is our internal CRD thinkers. So I'm not sure in the long run, can we combine it into 2 thinker and using the dynamic package so that the current thinker can also handle the CRD, whatever customer define.
That's definitely, I think that we should do that. But the thing is, the design perspective, I want to make sure we have a way to, I don't have a good idea right now, but I think we need to have a way to define or guard what should be synced and what should not be synced.
Yes, but also the customer can have we only propose a framework so that the customer can freely add in their things what they want to think.
Yeah, that's I'm afraid. You give a very nice framework, people can add everything that they want, but they can make a mistake. They probably don't understand and they make a mistake. And so I want to have some exact control over what things should be synced. But for now, the way that I control is we hard code it. So everything needs to be synced. At least our tech lead has to be approved because we think through all the side effects of sync this object.
Okay.
But your ability to sync CRD, that is definitely a way to go. And I already get a lot of requests internally to ask to sync the CRD.
Yeah, it seems like you could probably add that same function that we use for syncing, at least bidirectionally syncing up into the tenant control planes. If we use the same function that we use for priority classes, storage classes, like the annotation or the label to label it as public true, or like tenancy x.k/io / public true. If we did that on CRDs in the supercluster, it'd be nice to be able to sync those automatically up to a tenant control plane so that they could use those. Barring the fact that, of course, you still have to re-implement a syncing of those CRs down, that still has to be done, but at least syncing up resources would be something useful.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the challenge, the right challenge is just let Syncer know the schema in a dynamic way. So that's pretty much this.
Justin,
you have your hand up as well.
Oh yeah, it was just as a final item. If anyone that was working on those issues is trying to use cluster add-ons and hits any problems, please feel free to reach out to me, Justin SB, on Slack and other forums, GitHub and stuff.
Cool, thank you. We appreciate that. Also, on that note, because of the projects that you're working on, at some point syncing about what you're doing around like the annotated OpenAPI schemas for kept, I'd be very interested to hear if there's ways that we could leverage what that is doing, and if that's going to end up being more in tree, so that we could make our syncing a little bit more dynamic. Faye, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but like kept has like these really cool annotated fields that allow you to, correct me where I'm wrong, Justin, but like basically you have annotated fields. So we could say anything that is called namespace, we can annotate that field, and then you could pass it into a starlark function that goes and mutates all of those fields. And so you could, in essence, in theory, this is very hand wavy, but like in theory, we could make it so that the syncer could be more dynamic and use something like controller runtime to do it, but then pass it into a preprocessor to look for anything like automatically prefix the namespace because it had an annotated field on it. Now, Justin, you tell me if I'm completely wild there and that wouldn't work.
No, that's very correct. I think the kept method is to annotate specific fields in an instance of a CRD, whereas you probably are more interested in like extensions to the CRD schema itself. I would say that like the code approach is probably better for built-in types, and so but this approach would be would be great for like if you did want to sync CRDs for some reason in between the two clusters and you weren't able to, or it was less practical to put that into code, right? Then gotcha. But you can always, I think you can extend the OpenAPI. Don't quote me on this. We need a real OpenAPI expert. I think you can extend the OpenAPI almost arbitrarily, so you could put extra fields into your CRD. Maybe, I don't know.
There definitely is a way. I just don't know if the API server will serve those back to you.
That's a good question.
That would be my one concern, because there's like an optional field or something like that in OpenAPI, which could be very cool, and that would help both the use cases that Wei was bringing up about syncing CRs and doing that, because we don't. I mean, it depends how complex those CRs, the mutations on those CRs are. If there's a ton of nested namespaces in there, it's going to be more complex to write that. But yeah, cool. All right. Anybody have anything else that they want to bring up?
Yeah, maybe next time away, can you present how do you do the CRD sync? You have some done the CRD synchronization internally. Maybe how do you just present what you have now? Because I only know the rough idea, but I don't know the details. Maybe it's great. You have a presentation, and we can ask some questions about how to do that.
Wei, can you take that on for next week?
I'm not sure next week can we do it, because I tried next week, but if not, then the week after.
Okay. I'll add you to the agenda, and we can always move it to the next week, or to the next week agenda.
Okay.
Cool. All righty. Well, we can give everybody back some time now.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining. Again, this will be posted to YouTube later. Yeah, appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.